You're going to find a lot of fire in this episode. This episode was amazing because Terrance Johnson stopped by.
This is the Professional StepDad, a place where we share stories, strategies, and ideas for men just like you to help answer that one important question: how can I be a better stepdad?
Welcome back to the Professional StepDad podcast. I am your host, Franco Zavala. This is episode 5. Yeah, this is episode 5. With me today is my good friend Terrance. Terrance is also a stepdad, and he is going to share his story today. So thanks for joining me, Terrance. I appreciate you coming, bud.
Oh, absolutely.
So, as you know, I started this show for stepdads, right? And the reason I started the show for the stepdads is because as I began my journey 10 years ago as a stepdad, I quickly realized that there wasn't a lot of resources and places to go and communities to belong to of other men that were in my similar situation, or and you can get as similar as you want on it. So out of that necessity, I decided to, 10 years later, obviously, I decided to create this show so material can be delivered to stepdads who are going to be watching. So before we go any further, tell us who you are, what your, kind of your story, break it down for us.
So it's been 11 years. 11 years. So I've been a stepdad for 11 years. And we've got 4. So we've got 4. Combined total, we got 7. And there's definitely been, if I was to say, there's definitely been the highs and the lows. And kind of like you said, there was no roadmap. I didn't really know anything. It was just kind of like, okay, you dive in, and what do you do? What do you don't do? What do you try? What do you don't try? Mm-hmm. And I mean, that came with pros and cons, right? Just from the standpoint of the emotions the kids were feeling and what things I didn't realize were triggering emotions from them from past experiences with their biological dad, or things that I didn't even think were that big of a deal.
Wait, so you say 7 total, 4? What do you mean 4? Like, break that down.
So basically, when I met my wife, she had 4.
Okay. And
then I already had 1, and then we decided to have 2 together.
Okay.
So in total, we got 7.
So you are the definition of blended family.
Absolutely.
Okay. And girls, boys?
So the oldest is a boy. Okay. So as far as our age breakdown, it's 25, 22, 21, 19, 16, 9, and 6.
Wow. Okay. So, but you've been in the game for 11 years.
Yeah.
Have you been in, so your oldest is 25?
Yep.
You've been in it's a boy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you been in his life for 11 years?
Yeah. So I've been in his life 11 years. I knew him a little bit before I was married to his mom, just through what I do for work, which is, personal training. So I knew him from the standpoint of Lifetime Fitness and getting a chance to work with him a little bit in that sphere. But other than that, which I think that was maybe 2 years prior to that, was it. So think about that. Yeah. Yeah. So that's 13 years of his life. Yeah.
So you've been a stepdad to him for 13 years, or for 11 years, but you've been in his life for 13.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So so he's your oldest. So for me, in my situation with my kids, my oldest is Brindley, right?
Right.
But she's also was my toughest to break through and to build that trust and that communication with, from a girl's side, like, because she was so close to her dad. Right. So in your situation, being in his life for 13 years, I mean, he's a grown man now, he's 25. What were some of your highs and lows with dealing with, trying to communicate with him on that, that level? Because his dad's, I'm assuming, somewhere.
Yep. Okay, so his dad was still in his life. So it was, I would say for him, some of the toughest stuff probably was just connectivity. He was big into baseball, big into soccer, and those weren't 2 things that were a background for me. Mine was basketball and track. Those were backgrounds for me. So for him was, his biological dad played high school baseball, played college baseball. His grandfather played college baseball, uncles, all this stuff. So he had a lot of dynamics in that regard. So it was one of those ones where probably the hardest thing was that there was only so much I could do from a baseball standpoint to help him. And it was trying to find those things around to connect with him in that way. And then other areas were just things such as, like I remember one incident where it was a father-son camp out, right? So everybody's they're with their biological dad and the son. And it's just a whole father-son thing, just trying to do that whole male bonding type thing.
Right.
And then that was different because I didn't grow up with a background of camping. There was no camping, and that was
It was foreign to you.
yeah, that was completely foreign. I thought camping was getting in a motorhome. That was my camping experience growing up. You pull up to a KOA, you park it, you do the sewage stuff, the electricity, boom, running water. That was it.
Right.
So that was definitely a different experience and that I think was one of the things that helped us really connect because he had way more knowledge in camping than me. I had none. And for him, he showed me how to set up a tent. He showed me how to set up, actually doing a fire and setting up to cook food over that fire. And, and so that was him and me letting him know that he had the experience of leading the way. And that actually opened up doors for us on that event.
It was a bonding experience.
It was a great bonding experience.
So when you say biological dads, you mean, was his dad there or was it just you two?
It was just us two.
Okay. Where was his dad?
So his dad was in California.
Okay.
And like I said, in this group, they didn't know me. They knew his biological.
Right.
So, don't get it wrong. They weren't shunning me or nothing like that. They're just like, dude, here's the event, let's do it. And so he brought me and yeah. And for him, it wasn't this, like I said, once I let him take the lead, like he took the lead and it was almost like the role was reversed where he was the guardian. I was the child in that situation, but he was good with that. And it drew us so much closer. And then after that, he was like, okay. And then from there,
because he could see you were trying.
Yeah, he could see that it was something
that's
that
huge. That's huge. Just to showing your stepkids that. That's the hardest part. And a lot of these stepdads know the hardest part about dealing with this journey is the fact that we are trying so hard in dark corners and in uncommon hours. And this is the amount of time and energy and effort that we put into trying to make connections and to build trust and to have all that stuff comes without trophies and awards and the attaboys. We literally do it and nobody can see the work behind the scenes. Right. That was with Brinley and me. That was one of the things that we had, right? Because she, for the first, she was tough to break through. Her dad and her were like this. So in steps this new man. And immediately it was like, what the hell are you doing here? Like, who are you? You're not going to take his place. Don't even try. And she didn't speak those words. It was the way she looked, she felt, she treated situations. So for me, trying to overcome that obstacle and trying to build that trust with her was tough because, she's a girl and I grew up with a sister, but I had no kids up until that point, right? I wasn't raising any children. So being able to connect with her was it was more difficult because I wanted to let her know that I was trying really, really hard to listen, but I wasn't there to try to replace anybody, right? So that's tough. That's a tough situation. So you found that common ground in camping. Did that transfer over into, because you can't teach them anything about baseball, but you can teach them everything about sports. Sports is about communication, hard work, determination, all that stuff. That had to be built inside you, right?
Yeah, so after that, he really saw that, okay, he's not trying to replace my dad. Because like I said, their dad wasn't passed away, so it wasn't one of those situations where like, okay, the emotional side from that side has been disconnected. It was, he's still alive, lives a few miles down the road, and once we got through that, he realized, okay, got it. And he started seeing certain things, like I said, because I didn't have a baseball background, but he saw that I was willing to do different things. So as I learned something, I'm like, okay, hey, I saw that this could help you out. Do you feel like this could help you out? So I was, getting into batting practice, getting in with people I knew who had way more experience in baseball. And so I got him around the right people.
Right.
We made investments to get him better, like getting a pitching machine and just, letting him destroy the side of the house with this machine. Cause that thing would be humming and he'd crank it and boom, hit the wall. I'm like, dude, it is what it is, man. You got to get better. This is what you want to do.
Right.
And so that definitely helped quite a bit. And then it just, made our road a lot easier.
So explain the relationship that you have with his dad.
So I would say the relationship I have with his dad, I would say it's probably one of those ones where some people might be a little different, right?
Everybody, I think everybody has their own. I mean,
and mine was one of those ones where it was more like, okay, he lives down the street. Why doesn't he want to take more active role? So my relationship with him at the beginning was like, okay, I'm not trying to replace him. I'm gonna let him know I'm not trying to replace him, and he can do whatever the hell he wants. If you can come over here, grab him, you can do this, you can do that. And so if anything, it started getting to this point where it was almost like this complete hands off. Oh. Whereas I thought he would have stepped in and been more hands on with a lot of the things with the kids. He actually did the reverse and was more hands off, to where the relationship became more of he'd spend his time with them every other weekend and a couple midweek visits here and there, and then that was it.
Right.
So it almost...
Did it decrease over time? I mean, time-wise, spent with the kids?
Yeah.
As they got older, the time decreased, yes?
As they got older, the time decreased. And as the time decreased, the kids started, evaluating their own opinions. And then that's what I was saying before. That's when some of like the different emotional stuff started kicking in, where it's like, okay, here it is. This is not my biological dad, but he's doing more than my biological dad's doing for me.
Right.
And that's where some of like the emotional stuff that I wasn't prepared for, because I just figured, I'm like, hey, I'm just going to do what I would do.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it triggered different things for him, where all of a sudden now I was like, okay, well, why isn't my biological dad, who lives a couple miles down the road, why isn't he doing this? Why isn't he doing that? This person is not my biological and is doing this. And then that's when it started creating a different set of things that I never
Did that
thought
create
about.
tension with him?
It did create tension with him.
Okay. So a lot of these stepdads are running, this is some of the issues that they face. So this morning I was speaking with a gentleman on over Facebook, because I belong to this Facebook group called the StepDads Den, right? It's just a place, a few thousand members, where people can go and kind of just talk about their journey, right? So he was speaking on the fact that he's doing what he can to connect with his stepson, so that his stepson speaks up for himself, right? But then his stepson will go to his biological dad's house, and it's the reverse. So all the work that he's putting in at home kind of gets undone when it goes here, and then when they get back, it's like you're starting from scratch, right? And that frustrates a lot of stepdads, because they start asking themselves that question. Why am I, again, so remember, I'm under the impression, and when I say I'm under the impression, this is my theory. A lot of stepdads jump into a family not understanding the overall commitment that it takes to get there. So they jump in, but they have like this foot out the door, right? And it's a metaphorical foot. But when all hell breaks loose, and because they're not fully committed, and because their foot's kind of out the door, they'll find a reason to leave. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when they would leave to these, their biological dad's house and come back, it's like undoing everything that you're doing. So how do you handle that?
So it's funny you mentioned that, because we had a lot of that. We dealt with a lot of that. We'd sit here, get them to a great place, come back, and it's like, what the hell just happened? You were there for less than 48 hours. Who are you? So one of the things that we had to start doing was, because each one of them was different, where for a couple of our girls, what we had to do was they'd have to come home, and we had to get them to a point where it's like, okay, write down your feelings.
Okay. You were allowing them to express their feelings. Okay.
Because we were like,
Smart.
you got to write it down, because we'd sit here and they'd start talking. And my initial background is, okay, let's solve the problem. Let's solve the problem. And that's not what was being needed. It wasn't.
That's not your background. That's every man. Every man wants to solve the problem.
Right.
So keep going.
And yeah, so we sat there, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, that's wrong. Okay. Well, I thought that was, no, okay, got it. So then we started coming to the conclusion, was like, okay, when they get home, let's give them that first couple hours. Give them the first couple hours, let them write it down.
Yeah.
Write down everything that they experienced on the weekend, what they're feeling, their frustrations, whatever it is. And then we would ask them afterwards, once they wrote everything down, we'd meet with each one of them one by one and say, okay, you can tell us anything or everything that happened this weekend.
Wait. Back up. You just said that you come from a background of solving problems. Right. So you're explaining to me the exact opposite of that, which is listening.
Yeah.
So how did you get there? Tell me how you got there before you tell me what you did with the kids.
So after, because what would happen is they'd come home. I try to solve it. And then my wife and my kids, and then all of a sudden everybody's emotions are high. Mm-hmm. My wife's flustered. Kids are flustered. I'm pissed off because all I'm trying to do is help. Right, and now all of a sudden I'm getting the...
And nobody notices that you're trying to help, by the way, because
And now all of a sudden I'm getting the, you're not helping and you're making it worse. And it's like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? I'm listening to what you're saying, and all you're doing is rambling, and you're not trying to get anywhere. and you know, and then I do this thing, and my wife would bring this up, right? I'd do this thing where they'd say something, and I'd feel like the problem was so easy, so I'd laugh. Oh, and I've then done that. The hell would break loose. The storms would come down.
Where'd you learn that from?
You know what? I have no idea.
Have you ever taken the time to figure out what?
You know, no. That might be worth doing. Yeah, I would just laugh, and then everything would stop. And then it's, you're insensitive. You're not caring. And then that would just get me amped. Mm-hmm. And then we'd sit there, and then, you know, now all of a sudden it's like, okay, here it is. It's Sunday. Because they'd always come back Sunday morning or Sunday, you know, early afternoon. And now, like, for the next couple hours, it's like, okay, how do I not just cuss everybody out? Mm-hmm. How do I just keep all my thoughts in my head? Because I just think this is just absolutely ridiculous what we're emotional about. Right. And then I don't remember if it was my wife or something I've read or something. I just sat there and was like, okay, let me go backwards, and let me see if I put myself in their situation, because I've never been in their situation. Growing up, I had mom and dad 24/7. Yeah, me too. So it wasn't this back and forth. I didn't have to, you know what I'm saying? I didn't have to deal with that. And I remember, and then I remember with my own daughter that she reminded me of something without reminding me, because me and her mom were never together, but she would go back and forth, and I would have to listen to her tell me things that she would hear, and then I'd have to go, okay, don't react with emotion, listen to her, don't try to correct her, don't sit here and try to get into a verbal battle, just try to see what she's talking about and how I can help us move forward, and how I can create a better communication. Right. And then that just, like, the bells started going off. I'm like, okay, so that's what I'll do. I'll how can I create better communication? So since they want to be so emotional and I want to solve a problem, right, I was like, okay, if they write it down, that gives them time to not come in with raw emotions. They can still have the emotions, but they've written it down.
Right, they're releasing it through paper, right.
And then we can come back later. It gives me time to be prepared to just listen, just like shut up and listen. Mm-hmm. And allows my wife to be in the same spot, right? Because now we know, okay, this is what's going to happen. They're going to come home, they're going to be emotional, and we know we got to give them that first hour just to just write it down, figure out what they're going to come up with, and then know that, okay, hey, we're regrouping, sitting down with them one by one. And after that, it took a while.
Yeah, I was about to say that you didn't just tell them to do that and they're like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it wasn't like days, weeks, like we're talking years.
Right. I on the show, I always talk about the importance of patience.
Right.
Importance of like, no matter what I say, no matter what you say, no matter what they read, no matter what show they look at, the routines and habits and suggestions that we throw out, good, bad, right, or wrong, all take time.
Yeah.
Period. All take time.
Yeah.
It's an interesting theory or it's an interesting process that you have about them having. So did you have them structure right, or is it kind of just free write?
It was free writing. At the beginning, it was free writing. And then once it got to free writing, then it got down to 3 things.
Yeah, specifics. Smart.
Guys, just straight 3 things, which was, and we'd have them write it down. Tell me the best thing that happened this weekend. Tell me the thing that you would like to work on with the relationship you have over there. And then the last one was, tell us how we can help you best. And once we got to that and we got to an understanding, because that was the other side of it, right? Which was with the 4 of them, each one of them had a different answer on what they wanted from us. And that was the other problem that was happening, was we would sit there and try to treat each one of them with the same conclusion, which is you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this.
Right. A blanketed statement.
And that was one of the things that we discovered, was each one needed something specifically different. And we needed to be ready to do that. And once they started outlining what they needed, because like with my son, it was simply just, if I'm pissed, I don't need you doting on me. I don't need you asking me a bunch of stuff. You know what? At that point, I just want to get back to regular routine.
Oh, so he likes structure.
He's like, I just want to get back to regular routine. Yeah. And regular routine is wake up, get on what I got to get on, get homework done, do our normal. And that's what I need. And that's what he needed versus our oldest daughter. She needed to be able to voice the things that she was feeling about every situation. And that's what we learned, was she said that I need to be able to have your undivided attention for 30 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And then the next one was just like, I don't need 30 minutes. I just need you guys to hold me and just tell me you believe in me. And then the last one was simply just, I just need you to tell me how I can solve the problem and get better at solving problems on my own. So each one of them was completely different. And it was like, okay, like even my daughter, the one that lives in Vegas, who obviously my wife was the stepmom for her, she learned from this experience too, which was my,
Right, your web is crazy, right? Your web is like, so, I mean, everybody's in the picture. I mean, you have, okay, keep going.
Yeah, so for my wife, she had to learn that, that my daughter never wanted to feel like she was trying to replace her mother, didn't want to ever have that feeling, but she wanted that relationship to where she could get the emotional side.
Right.
That she felt like she wasn't getting from her mom, because her mom just wasn't built like that. And that's not my thing. But that was something that she was needing, was to be able to know that it is good to be emotional. It's okay to be emotional in that regard and learn how to express that, and to know that, hey, it's okay to cry and it's not something to feel bad for. So my wife was like right there for her in a lot of the different emotional things that I couldn't do and my wife didn't know how to do.
Right, and learning from her also helped her in your house. So there's so many lessons to be learned off of the patience that you've had and through the experiences, right? And the idea that you had, from free writing to structured writing to having them get real specific on exactly what they need. A lot of, how do I say it? So I argue, and when I say I argue, I mean I just bring up points, right? But my thing is this, is that in no way, shape, or form do the children in your guys' life, right? They are not looking for the replacement for their biological anybody. That's not what they're looking for. But that in no way, but that doesn't mean that you can't, and this is going to, I'll explain it, but that doesn't mean that you can't replace their biological parents. And what I mean by that is that, yes, by the world's standards and by what's the social narrative of what a step parent is, right? That's what you are, which is you do what you can up to a point, but then you got to let the biological parents take care of it because that's their job. And it's a narrative that we've been given and that we've learned and that we see on television and in movies that we think that that is the way to go. When in reality, it's not about you can do what you can up until a point and then letting the biological parent take place. It is what kind of, I believe in 3 main steps. First, understanding fully who you are and why you do what you do, which is why I asked you earlier, why did you do that? And if you've ever done self-reflection, right? My episode 1 on this is all about self-reflection, which is you've taken the time to have your children go, okay, tell me what you want to learn over there and what we can do for you. But my question to you, Terrance, is have you done that to you? Right. Like, have you taken the time and going, man, I've never really looked at this. Like, why do I always try to solve every problem? Where does that stem from? And what was what was the best way to communicate with me and why? Like, ask yourself these questions because it's important that before we can get to the stepkids. So again, I say this because most stepdads, and I did the same thing, right? I got into the relationship. I fell in love with her mom. My immediate thing was, how can I make all the children love me? I jumped over my wife and went, how can I make all the children love me? I want to make sure that I connect with them. I want to be the fun guy. I want to be the yes man. I want to do all of that, right? I tried so hard to get the acceptance from the kids that I started losing my connection with my wife. And the reason why I was there in the first place. And the reason I lost that with my wife is because I had a need growing up, because yes, I had my parents, but my dad worked all the time and my mom drank all the time. And when my dad came home, he drank all the time. And my sister was not the best influence in the world. So as a child growing up, all I wanted was to be loved. Somebody pay attention to me. That's the thing that I needed, right? So unconsciously, I brought that into my adult life, which is why I became an actor, right? I wanted the recognition. And then when I got into this family, I transferred, unconsciously, I transferred all of that. What's the word I'm looking for? I transferred all of that past ways of me growing up to that situation, and it was backwards. So instead of working on me first, then working on my teammate's my wife. At the end of the day, like, we're a team. Like, we are the front owners. The kids are the players. My wife and I own the company, and this is the work that I have to do with myself, right? So if my wife and our connection is not there, no matter what I do, if I wouldn't have made that connection with her, right? I wouldn't have taken that time to develop our relationship first before I went to the kids and try to and make it work there, I would have never got the support that I needed in order to get to. So like a stepdad will be running full steam ahead, like, we're going to solve a problem. Right. And then at 70%, here comes grandma, here comes neighbor, here comes coworker, here comes biological whatever. And they're like, stop. You can't go any further. Now it's the parent's job. And that's a wrong strategy. Because we're teaching our kids that, my stepdad can only do so much. But then mom's got to take over and I got mom pegged. I know how to handle this, right? They have to see a united front going forward or it will never work. And that's my argument. Yeah. That is a huge argument for me because a lot of men believe that they want to get into the situation and they want to solve the problem, right? Solving the problem is such a universal way of looking at this. Why did we even step up in the first place? Think about it. Why? Why'd you?
And when you think about it and as you were saying that, I was sitting there thinking about, like, okay, why am I that way? And pretty much like you said, that was one of the initial hurdles that we had was I hadn't realized that so much of my life had been about control, which is one of the reasons why I did track and field. I didn't do well at team sports. I never did football. I did basketball in high school for a little bit to a point where I didn't do it anymore because I didn't like the fact that no matter how hard I worked, I couldn't control the outcome. I couldn't control whether we won or we lost or this kid played this way or this one did that or the coach made the decision to sub me out instead of leaving me in. And that's why track ended up being so great for me, because it was simple. I put the work in, I'm going to get the results, and it doesn't matter what the coach says, doesn't matter what anybody else does. If I've outworked you, I get the win.
Right.
I get the results. I get everything I want out of it. And that's why I realized, as I'm sitting there thinking about it, that's why I was so much about the control, because I'd step over my wife and be like, well, this is the answer.
Right.
This is the answer. We're doing this. And then
the kids look past you and are like, Mom, is this what we're doing?
And now I've taken my wife's voice out of it. I've shown that we're not united, that we haven't figured out what's best for them. I figured what was best.
Yeah.
She's figured what's best, but we haven't figured what's best.
Right.
And once we started doing that, then we started it was like the light bulbs are going off. All of a sudden, I was like, damn, I feel like a good parent. I feel like a great husband. Oh yeah, who would have known, right? So yeah, as I sit here and think about it, that was kind of the original reason why I stepped into this. I stepped into this because I was like, okay, I want to be married. I want the right person for me, and I want the right person for my daughter and any current kids that she has or any future kids that we have. And that was my reason why I stepped in it to begin with, because I'm like, okay, this is what I wanted. I wanted a united front, yet I didn't act like, it was kind of almost like I wanted a united front.
Yeah. We all want when we get in there.
But I didn't do it.
Right. Well, it's not, we don't mean to, dude.
Right.
It's not like we mean to.
Right.
At the end of the day, we don't mean to bring who we were into who we are.
Right.
We don't mean to do that. I call it an inherited ignorance and traits. Like I didn't mean to bring in the fact that when one of the kids, here's a big thing for me. When one of my kids would cry, right? Like, and when I say cry, I don't mean cry like in like whine. I mean like because they got hurt.
Right.
A natural reaction for a parent should be like, oh, what's wrong? Like, everything okay? But for some reason, because I was brought up in this military life, when I would hear somebody cry, I get mad. I would get pissed off for no apparent reason whatsoever. I would still try to help, but I wouldn't empathize with them whatsoever. And I would be like, look, this is what I would do that. And the kids are like, what? We're this isn't the army, right? And for the longest time, I would do that. I would get so upset. And it wasn't because I was mad. It was because for some strange reason, my bubble or my life that I was leading at that very moment, when that happened, it was something I couldn't control. And because I couldn't control it, it started throwing everything out of whack. And because I couldn't handle it immediately and fix it and put everything back so it was a spinning circle again, it irritated the crap out of me, right? And I didn't understand that year 1 through 4. It wasn't even until year 5 until I finally understood, okay, I got to stop being my dad. I got to stop being my uncle. I got to stop being my grandfather. I got to stop being my mom. Everything that they did, yes, I'm alive, but man, a lot of this shit don't work at all. So
it's funny you mentioned that, because that was actually something that my wife showed me as well, was when one of the kids would whine or cry, I'd get pissed.
Yeah.
I get super, super irritated and angry. Like, what are you doing? What? That's nothing to cry over. Nobody died, but what are you crying over? And just, even like expressing love and hugging, I didn't realize that just wasn't my upbringing until we started looking at it later. I'm like, okay, that's right. We didn't really, in my family growing up, we didn't say I love you. We didn't, we weren't hugging. And I heard of my parents crying. I never saw that, even with my sister. I never saw it.
Yeah.
And one day, my wife, my daughter was in town visiting. Like, I had her for the summer. Well, I was like, you need to hug her. So, what? She's like, she's got the plane. The first thing you're supposed to do when she gets and you see her is to hug her. And I'm like, why? And she, and then that got us into a strong discussion. And then that's when
They
I
compute
started.
you. Yeah, you didn't know
And
that
that's
was
when I
wrong.
started understanding the emotional side, like you said, and just starting to make connectivity in terms of like, okay, got it. This is why I'm doing this, and this is why I need to change.
Right.
So, like you said, yeah, I started making a lot of changes in that regard with the hugging. It still is definitely
I
it is
agree.
definitely
I
still
agree.
something that I work on
Yeah, this is a
because
never-ending game, right? You're going to continue to get it better.
So I'm better. 11 years later, I'm better than I was when we first started. I'm not gonna say I'm great. I'm not like a Mr. Rogers type hugger. I'm definitely moved from a side hugger to a front hug type thing, and then the tear thing. I just don't say nothing, and I just try to go, what can I do to help? So I have, there still is that part where I have to think about it. So I'm definitely at a point now where I don't get mad and I don't get angry, but I'm like, what can I do to help? And so, progress,
I think this is important for you stepdads to know. Check this out. As I'm sitting here listening to Terrance talk, I'm thinking like Terrance is years on me in this stepdad game, right? And you're 13 years into this. I'm going on 11.
Right.
And listen to me very carefully, guys, because it's important to remember this while you're watching these episodes and you're watching these shows. We're still learning. Like, we don't have this figured out at all. But because we did the work initially, we're able to handle situations better that are going to progressively move our families forward to building a foundation of success and love. That's the objective here. Our entire objective as stepdads is to gain the trust of everybody in the family so they see you as the leader. That's what our job is, right? So never think that taking the advice from Terrance or listening to what I say is going to solve your problem immediately. This is not a get rich quick scheme. This isn't one of those motivational talks where they say, become a millionaire in 2 weeks. That's not what it is, right? Yeah. This is going to require you. It's going to require you to put in the work, the time, the energy, and the effort in order to get to a point in your relationship with your children and your wife where you could feel comfortable with the continued growth and never be satisfied where you're at, right? So never look for that satisfaction like you've done enough, because in absolutely no way, because you know it as well as I know, guys, our children continue to grow. So the problems that they had at 10 are not the problems that they have at 17, right?
Amen. No,
so
for real.
Being aware of that, man, is big. You need to know that that's big.
It is.
That's huge. A really big thing to do. So how do you envision, like, if you could look back, here's a great question. If you could look back at yourself at year 2 or 1, right? You just got into this. You're going, you got to kind of take your thoughts back to who you were.
Right.
If you can look back at year 1 or 2, are you happy about the decisions that you made? Do you look back at them more of a learning experience, or do you regret anything you've done?
It's a great question. I would say I definitely don't regret, because I needed to grow.
Yeah.
Because I needed to know what I don't know, understand what I don't understand, and find ways to better. So I definitely don't regret anything. If I was to do anything different, which is what I'm doing now, is
in year 2.
Yeah.
Tell that to them.
So so what I'm doing now, like if I'd have been in year 2, the thing that I would have pushed more is to create more family dynamic stuff where it was me and the kids doing more things, like almost in a sense of something of a building block, right? So if all of a sudden it was like, hey, you know what? We're going to create these different things that's like our little family thing that we do, right? Where it's like, okay, we, and taking every kid, and at that time it was just 5, right? So having a building block with them saying like, okay, these are the things that we do together as a family, because these are the things that's important to each kid. And even though each of us may not like that, we're going to get involved in it, and we're going to find the reason that we like it is because it's what this other person really likes. So for example, meaning that each one of mine was different. Like I said, Dallin was into baseball and soccer. Corbin was into dance. Jamaica was into all the sports. And then McKinley was into gymnastics. And McCall was just starting to kind of get into soccer. But instead of trying to create more avenues for everybody to have success in terms of supporting, not like just verbally supporting, right? But just like being there and supporting. I didn't necessarily do that. It was always like this, okay, well here, me and Honey are going to go visit Jamaica while she does her things in Vegas. And what I should have done was brought the family more, because the times when I did bring all of the family, even though they weren't all into basketball, it was like, oh, great little family trip. Everybody enjoyed it. She saw the support that she needed, and it made her feel involved, made her feel a part of this family. But then, like I said, at the same time, there are times where it's like, okay, I didn't bring them all to a dance thing for Corbin, or I didn't have them all go to a gymnastics thing for McKinley. So that's the thing that I would say at year 2, I really, really wish I had done more of that. I mean, we're doing it now because everybody's older now, and I'm not saying we're all disconnected, but definitely it would have been one of those things where it would have been, I feel like it would have been secondhand nature for everybody to be like, oh, hey, so-and-so's got this.
Be supportive.
Boom.
Boom, yeah.
It's not this, okay, well, let's see here. I got to do this to this to this to make that happen.
Yeah, it's almost like you're in negotiation standards with all your kids to make sure that they come, or, yeah.
So, so like I said, because obviously, we've had a couple weddings. So everybody was there for the weddings, and we haven't had any college graduations yet. And that's like the next big thing
right.
is
Next evolution.
Everybody being there. But it would have been one of those things where it's like, okay, outside of like a family vacation, if we had created stronger dynamics in that, I feel like it just, like you said, it would have been secondhand nature for everybody to be like, okay, so-and-so's got this. And it doesn't matter whether it was big or small. They just all knew that that person was so passionate about that. It was just a done deal. Didn't matter how big or small it was. They would be there. So that's probably the one thing I would say that if I had to do, I would make sure that I would have implemented more connective webs at year 2 and would have really thought about it that way, because now, like I said, I'm deeper into it and I'm almost 43, and it's like, okay, I'm trying to think about it from the past where it's like, okay, when I'm dead, I want them to still connect.
Yeah.
And not just be like, okay, well, he's dead, she's dead, I got my family thing over here I'm doing, and it's kind of like, okay, we'll all get together here and there, versus still keep that.
Place an importance on this, on the times to be together. I say, so that's very much about building and setting the tone for that. I call it your timeline, right? Everybody's got their own timeline, and as we mix family, like I even wrote it up here, as you mix families and timelines, everything interacts and entwines, and you're dealing with the inherited traits and values from the outside world and the bio parents and their family and their life, and that keeps going, right? So what you're talking about, of which you would have done at year 2, just to kind of get you guys, very clear what he's meaning. What he means is that he wished he would have established more importance on the values of being there for one another at year 2. So fast forward to today, those values would hold so much importance to their family that they didn't feel like it was something they had to do, but it's something that they wanted to do. They actually felt this desire to go be supportive to one another, right? So, and when you deal with bigger families, or even if, let's call it 2 kids or more, you have to remember that everybody's going to be different. And the values and traits that your stepchildren are bringing to the table, whether they are good, bad, right, or wrong, have nothing to do with you, stepdad. They have nothing to do with you. The only thing that matters is what values you're going to instill now and how much patience you're going to have so that when you fast forward to our world, which is 10, 11 years, you can look back on that time and say, man, I'm so glad I listened to Terrance and Franco, and I put some importance on whatever that is for you in your world, because it really did pay off at the end. And that is the objective of this show, right? That's the objective. That's the objective of even sitting down and talking with you, because no matter what I say, okay, I got asked this question yesterday. Why'd you call this the Professional StepDad? Right? The two-part question. Why did you call this the Professional StepDad? Do you think you have it all figured out? That was the question I was asked. Right. Answer is no, right? I called this show the Professional StepDad is because that is the journey and the end destination that we all seek as men, to be professionals at what we do, right? And a true professional, whether it be in sports, in business, or at step parenting, a true professional knows that there is no retirement age. A pro continues to get better always, right? So the Professional StepDad is very much a play on that is what we all seek to be. We seek to be professionals at this, because a professional, there's nothing better, and I don't know if you agree with me, there's nothing better in the world than watching a professional do work. Yeah. Right? Whether it's juggling, track, football, magic, singing. Like, it's cool to see a novice. It's cool to see year 1 and 2. It's cool to see novice because, you root for them. Right. But there's nothing better than when a professional steps out on stage and delivers like a pro, because you believe that you're gaining so much from that moment, right? And that is what we seek. That's what we're going after.
No, I agree with that. Like I said, when you sit there and see somebody, it's not so much of a jealousy. It's a mutual respect, because we don't, like I said, you don't necessarily know all the intricate details, and you don't need to know all the intricate details of the work that person put in, but you know that they putting in work,
right,
to get to that level, to be just that damn good, and feel confident in knowing that what they're doing is the right thing.
Right, and that is why, guys, I call myself a professional stepdad, because I consider myself, from the time and work that I've put in, I consider myself a pro at what I do now. I don't have it all figured out, but I am a pro. I am a pro at what I do because I follow just 3 main principles. And those 3 main principles that I think I've told you about them, but and what we talked about earlier, the principles that I followed that got me to a point where I consider myself a professional is because I focus on 3 key points, which is me, okay, then the us, which is the teamwork with my wife, them. Me, us, them. And I did it in that order, right? And by doing it backwards or any other way, it doesn't work. It doesn't mesh well. Me, us, them, right? So stepdads, me, us, them. Like, think about that, kind of internalize that, because if you're finding yourself struggling to connect with your kids, or you're finding yourself struggling to have authority in the home, for God's sakes, 99% of us, when we enter into this step parenting scenario, we're walking on freaking eggshells all the time because we're so afraid of the outside judgment and the ridicule and all that shit people are saying to us or about us behind closed doors, that we don't feel free to be the stepdads and the men and the leaders that we want to be in the home that we live in. Therefore, we have that, what we talked about in the beginning, we have that metaphorical foot out the door. Yeah. I'm telling you, right? So, but the only way you can get to that point, and I believe this, the only way you can get to that point is by first understanding why you do what you do, why you act the way you act, why you react the way you act. And then second, what kind of relationship do you have with your partner? I mean, some of you aren't married. Some of you are like dating the woman or dating the partner that you're with, that you're still thinking about going in. You're still thinking about going all in, right? And you have second, you got to make sure that teamwork, that bond is strong enough. So when you do get to that very crucial punishments and scoldings and however you want to do it, right? You don't revert back to who you were because you didn't do the self-work. Because if I didn't do the self-work first, the way I would punish is the way my dad punished me, which is to whoop the shit out of me. Right? And that didn't work. That wasn't a beneficial thing for me. Right? Although it's an accepted thing to talk about,
Right.
it still wasn't beneficial. But the only way that worked, and the only way the kids saw me as a leader, as a stepdad, as that person in their life, again, not trying to replace, but an authoritative,
Yeah.
authoritative figure in the household, was because mom and I were on the same page. So if you're finding yourself unable to connect or walking on eggshells or fill in the blank, ask yourself, did I do the work on me first? Are my wife or my partner and I on the same page? And if you are, then you're probably not having this. But if you still are, again, this is a big thing. If you still are, it's because you didn't take the time once you got to this point. It's not jump all in. It is, okay, I'm here. My wife's on my team. I know why I do the things I do. Now it's time for you to shut up and listen, like Terrance said. It's time for you to shut up and listen. Your kids are speaking a language to you that may not seem important to you, but it's important to them. My daughter Emma said it yesterday.
Everyone has their own problems. So you can't be making someone else feel bad about their problems, because those problems are bigger to the people.
The things that are problems for her might not be problems for me, but they're still problems. And if I push them away like they're nothing, and I treat them like they're small and tiny, then she's not going to want to come and talk to me. She's not going to want to communicate with me. You know what I mean? So that's what I think. And that's amazing that you are even in your situation. 7 kids, dude. That's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, I've got 5. A lot of you stepdads have like 1, 2, or 3, but this man has 7. Balancing his life, his kids, and his relationship is probably not an easy game.
No.
It's probably not an easy game.
Like I said, in taking off of what you said, for somebody who may not even be able to look at it that way, I always broke it down to the, I date myself first, then I date my wife, and then we date the kids.
Yeah.
And when you do it that way, like you said, it's one of those, you get it. Because obviously if you date yourself, you're going to treat yourself the best way you possibly could on a date.
Right.
You're going to sugarcoat it. You're going to make sure this is the greatest date ever. And then, like I said, and then after that, you know what it takes to make you great, and you know what you like. And then, like I said, you go to the next step. It's okay. How do I make my wife great? How do I make my spouse great? Whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. And then after that, it's okay. How do we make the kids great? How do you do this part? I do that part. And I think, like you said, that's the other biggest part. It's understanding that you can have some things that are you parts and her parts, but there needs to be a bigger percentage of these are our. Yeah. This is what we do. Mm-hmm. This is our part. And like I said, you even hit on it from a disciplinary standpoint, which is, growing up, I got a few whoopings. I remember all 3 of them. I remember getting my ass whooped 3 times, and all 3 of them were horrible. They were enough of experience to always remember them. And I said, I don't fault my mom or my dad for them. I just know that I never whooped my daughter. And so it was like, hey, that's not something I want to do. So how do we create the discipline without that? And that was something that we worked on together as far as this and that. Smart, because like I said, because that's,
so she was raised too, probably, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she got that. She got her ass whipped with a belt too. Yeah. And that was probably the part. And he said, and I know some stepdads have probably been in this situation where you're scared as hell to discipline the kids, because you're like, okay, if I discipline them, they're gonna hate me. CPS, like J. Cole's, the neighbors think I'm beating the shit out of my kids, so you're gonna have some thoughts like this, right? And so that was one of those ones where it's like, okay, got it. I don't want the kids to hate me, and she didn't want my daughter to hate her, but we need to discipline, and it can't be one of those things where it's, well, I can't discipline you until mom gets here,
right.
Or
she be able to have the authority to do your job.
And so that's like I said, that's a whole nother thing. And that, like I said, it comes down to that being on the same page as far as how that looks, how that works, and earning the trust and the confidence to know that they're going to respect you because you've taken the time, you've built that with your spouse, and you've built that with them, that they're not going to look at it as he trying to kill me, or he belittled me, or he made me feel like, like the lowest speck on earth. And like I said, it is a process, because at the beginning, yeah, you're afraid as hell to be like, oh shoot, they messed up.
I know what I should do. I know what I need to do.
Right.
But do I have the green light? And if you don't have the green light,
Yeah.
you could lose your family. Think about it. I mean, there are probably a lot of stepdads who thought they had the green light but didn't have the green light. And we're not talking about beating your kids, guys. We're not talking about an ass whooping here. We're talking about the green light to be able to feel comfortable enough to discipline your children in a way that will be satisfactory to your partner when she finds out about it, because she will, because all the kids are going to run to the other kid, whether the others, they're going to run to them.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So did you get the green light? And if you didn't, brace yourself,
Yeah.
right?
It's going to be hell.
And it's going to be hell unless you can do the work first. I'm telling you, you can get on the same page with your wife or your partner, and the kids see the United Front and they see that it's a 50% shareholder agreement. Right? They know now that the mom first, so you stepdads know, mom's CEO. Okay, she's the owner. She's CEO. You are COO.
Yep.
Meaning you handle operations within the home. Mom's
Exactly.
CEO. But when the kids can see both of you, CEO and COO, on the same page to run the company,
Yeah.
you're gonna find success.
Yeah.
Right?
I
Patience
agree.
is still gonna take time. Doesn't matter. Best partners in the world in business know that you can't get rich overnight. It takes time and work and all that other fun jazz. So it's a great way to. I mean, I love that stuff. Okay, guys. Something to take away today is this, and this is all coming from Terrance's side. It's listening to your children, but taking that time, like Terrance did, to allow them to express their feelings on paper. And if you feel to do it the structured way, I'm sure you guys can message me or send me an email, and I can have Terrance whip up something that they use for their kids, and then we could just give it to you guys for free.
Absolutely.
So they can have like a PDF, whatever. But this would be something, allow your children, allow the kids to get to a point where they can speak freely on paper without feeling they're going to be judged or ridiculed by what they say, in a place that's in a comfortable environment, so that you can talk everything through and you can find your way back on track to continue to keep going, right? So that's what I would take away. Like I said, the 3 things: allowing your children to speak and allowing them to write it down so they can, what were the 3 things again? It was, what do I gain from?
Yeah, so basically, so coming back down to the 3 things, it was, what did I enjoy this weekend?
Okay.
What's something that I would like to improve upon with the time that I'm there, and what I need from you.
Okay. So you guys got that, right? So it's find the good, find the growth, find the connection.
Yep.
That's what I would say. So guys, Terrance, I want to make sure that do you want me to tell me your full name, just so, like, even the middle name, just so people can find you?
Oh, absolutely. Super easy. So there's like a million Terrance Johnson, because it just seems like the most common black name, right? Like even on Venmo, just real funny. I'm 28 on Venmo.
On Terrance Johnson's?
Yeah, I'm number 28.
So so I want to know the middle initial.
Yeah, so it's Terrance Huey L. Johnson.
Huey L? Mm-hmm. Huey L. Johnson. So is it Terrance H. L. Johnson?
Yep.
Okay, cool. You guys got that. So Terrance H. L. Johnson. I'll have his information here probably below him. You do fitness and health and all that other fun jazz.
Yeah.
You guys ever want questions, you can shoot him a message. Thank you very much for joining us on the Professional StepDad podcast. Terrance, thanks so much for being here, man. I really appreciate you.
Absolutely.